The crisp and crunch of your tempuraed veg and prawns sitting over a bed of soft and fluffy rice. This is tendon, or my version of a tempura rice bowl. Welcome back to Wok Wednesday. I'm Jeremy from School of Wok here in Covent Garden in London. We're going to go straight into the tempura. And I've got a few different vegetables already sliced up here. I've got some onion, sort of Japanese onion rings, let's call it, this tempura. We'll put all these into the batter in a sec. Some sweet potato, some broccoli. You can use whatever vegetables you want, really. I've kept the skin on the sweet potato because I feel, it adds a bit of texture to it, which is, this dish is all about texture. You know, as I say, you've got that crispiness from the tempura and then the soft rice underneath and a nice simple sauce. This here is Lotus Root. So if you haven't used Lotus Root before and don't know what it is, kind of sit underneath a giant lotus or lily pad in a pond. And what's great about this is it holds its crunchy texture, which again, the same word coming up over and over again. That's Japanese food is very much about texture. It's important to note that. So we're going to go for nice thin slices of this as well. I love lotus root. You can use it, as I'm doing here, deep frying, or in soups, in stir fries. And usually you can find this in Asian supermarkets. So plenty of lotus root there, and lots of choice when it comes to the tempura vegetables. Now I've got head-on, shell-on prawns here. I've kept it that way because I want to keep the tail part connected to the body. But the first thing I'm going to do is peel these prawns, just leaving that last bit of tail in. And the way to do that is just to sort of run your thumbs across between the legs and then press down on the prawn and push up. And you can see then, you should be able to then peel that relatively easily. Keeping the tail and the shell of the tail on, and then I'm going to take the head off, but don't waste the head. There's a lot of flavour in that. Not dissimilar to sort of brown meat when you're eating crab. You've got your white and your brown meat. There's the brown meat in the head that tastes delicious. We can deep fry that too. So whilst your hands are sort of a little bit mucky, you want to devein the prawns. So you want to poke in and pull up, and then you should just be able to find the vein and pull that out. And you want to do that for each of your prawns. There are a couple of ways that you could sort of flatten out your prawns. You either butterfly it this way and then score across, or you can just turn it on the underside and score the underside, and that just sort of allows it to sort of uncurl like so, but still stay whole. The batter, it's really quite simple. There are so many different types of tempura batter recipe. You could use plain flour and corn flour, or just plain flour. Some of them have bicarb or baking powder in. I'm actually using a rice flour today. It's a little bit finer, a bit lighter, and gets sort of a bit more sort of fluffy around the edges and crisps up well. It's almost got a sort of a bite to the crisp. I've also got about 2 tablespoons of corn flour in this to make it even crispier. So it's about 250 grams rice flour, 2 tablespoons of corn flour. Just gonna crack a couple of egg yolks into this. And the egg yolk, I find, enriches the flavour and the colour of your batter. I'm going to put a little bit of salt into this just to season the batter. And then really cold soda water. You can just use normal water too, but I find that the soda water, the fizz of it, creates a really light batter. Now you could make this and kind of let it sit in the fridge before, like at the start, but I prefer, with any type of sort of deep frying wet batter, to make it fresh just before you deep fry. I've got a little bit more water in here, but I'm not necessarily going to use all of it, because much like anything when you're dealing with flour, every bag of flour might be slightly more coarse or knot than the other. And you just want to make sure you're getting the right texture. And this needs to be sort of sticky enough to stick on whatever ingredients you're putting into the batter, but also thin enough that it creates that really light feel to it. You're talking a kind of thin, single cream consistency. So for 250 grams of flour plus the couple of tablespoons of corn flour, you're probably looking at around 200 to 250 mils of that cold soda water, depending on your bag of flour. Before deep frying, I'm just going to make up a quick, nice, light soy sauce sort of drizzle or dipping sauce. I've got some Japanese soy, some mirin, that's M-I-R-I-N, mirin. And then this stuff here is my dashi, which is essentially just kombu, which is a dried seaweed sheet, just soaked in cold water. Well, you can soak it in hot water as well. And that just gives this lovely light soy dipping sauce. Delicious. Anything wooden, good to check your oil. If it starts fizzing straight away, and I mean it fizzed a bit more than it should because it's got a bit of batter around these chopsticks, but it is fizzing immediately, which is good. And so I know it's at a good heat. I'm going to keep it on a sort of medium to high heat there. We'll start with your veg. Do a few of these Lotus Root. And you'll see when these fry how beautiful they look. And I know the texture of the batter here is how I want it to be, because those little wisps that are sitting there in the oil by themselves are looking nice and sort of frayed. You can just take a little spoon or fork and just run a little bit of extra batter over the top of those tempura veg. And Lotus Root, especially when it's cut really thin, barely takes much time to cook at all. Lovely white colour, but you can hear how crispy that's going to be. Keep those bits, they're great for more texture on that rice. From here, we're just going to keep doing the same with all the different types of veg. So as you can see, I have got way too much tempura for a bowl of rice, but hey, when you're cooking this sort of stuff, cook it for a lot of people. The rice, I've got just some Japanese steamed rice here. When you're cooking this, make sure you wash it well beforehand. So, you know, you're talking like 5 or 6 washes. Just run your fingers gently through with some cold water until the water runs clear. And then it's roughly 1 to 1 1/4 rice to water. I'm going to just compile this however you wish. Make it look pretty. And the key for me is making sure it's really nice and full of the tempura. Be generous. And these prawns have come out beautiful. And the prawn heads will be super crispy. Got these scraps. Add a bit more texture to the top of that. A whole bowl of deep fried food. That really was super crispy. If you like it as much as I did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ding, hit that notification bell. And we'll see you next time.